Hello! Now Christmas is a time of tradition and one of the best ones is making gingerbread houses, but this year I thought I'd throw a little curveball at tradition and make my gingerbread houses mini. So I'm going to show you step by step how it's done. There's two things that are really important to get right when making gingerbread houses. One of them is accuracy. All your components need to be just the right size in order to fit together. And the other thing actually helps that, and that is the recipe. Your recipe needs to be bang on. You need to have cookies that are really nice and snappy, but also don't spread too much. And this is the recipe for you. So to start with, I'm going to mix my dry ingredients together. And I have 350 grams of plain flour, which I've already sifted into this bowl. And to that, I'm going to add 2 rounded teaspoons of ground ginger, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a good old pinch of salt. And I'm going to mix that all through the flour using a whisk. Just put that to one side for later. And next up I have 80 grams, which is 4 tablespoons of golden syrup in this bowl, and I'm going to add a whole large free range egg to that and give it a good mix. So that just needs to be put to one side until I need it later. And next up I'm going to beat my sugar and my butter together. I'm using light soft brown sugar, 175 grams of it, but sometimes it can be a little bit lumpy, so I'm going to put mine through a sieve first. And I'm adding 125 grams of unsalted butter, which is nice and soft. And that just needs to be beat together until it's a little bit pale. Once that's had a minute or two beating, it's time to add the egg and the golden syrup mixture. So just pour that straight in and beat that together on a medium speed for about a minute. And now it's time to add the dry ingredients we mixed together earlier. And that just needs to be folded together to form a dough. Right, my dough is ready, and I'm going to refrigerate it for about half an hour to an hour before I start working on it. I always split my cookie dough into 2 batches. This makes it easier to work with rather than having one humongous ball of dough to roll out. Also, it's good because it means you can save some for another day. So I'm going to grab half of my dough and just give it a little squeeze with my hand just to form a ball, which I'm then going to kind of flatten out because it's much easier to roll when it's flat. And once you have a nice flat disc, just wrap it in cling film. And just do the same to the other half and then whack them in the fridge. So I've got my cookie dough out of the fridge, it's nice and firm. And now I'm going to start rolling so that I can cut out my template. I have all the components that I need here. I've got a piece for the right side of the house, the left side, the front, the back, and then 2 pieces which will make the roof. And I'm going to put in the description box below a little downloadable PDF that you guys can use at home as well. But of course you can do whatever size. If you can work out how to make a bigger house, then go ahead. This dough will be just as good for that. But I'm going to start by rolling mine out. Because I'm making small houses, I want my biscuits to be quite thin, otherwise they're going to be really chunky and horrible. But first of all, just liberally dust your surface with flour. And my disc of dough is just going right in the middle, and I'm going to roll that out slowly to about 3 or 4 millimeters thick to make them nice and thin. And next up, it's the tricky and really fiddly bit, and you're going to need a big sharp knife for that and a ruler, preferably a metal one so you don't chop into it. And I'm going to start by making a nice clean straight line at the bottom of my dough. That is going to give you a nice straight line to start with, and then you just need to take your ruler and your template and cut out all the components that you need for your house. Now it's worth taking your time on this bit because it's really important that all your pieces fit together nice and neatly. You definitely don't want to have one side smaller than the other, so you end up with a wonky shack rather than a nice fancy Christmas gingerbread house. So I've managed to get 4 houses out of my round of dough. I'm going to roll my scraps, so I'll probably get another one, and you don't want to roll your scraps more than once, otherwise it will become quite tough. And you can leave it there and save your other round of dough for another day. I'm going to build a town of gingerbread houses, so I'm going to roll mine now, and then they're just going to be baked at 170 degrees C for 11 to 12 minutes or until they're nice and golden around the edges. My cookies are out of the oven and they're looking really neat and tidy. So while they're cooling down, I'm going to get on with making the glue which is going to hold these houses together. And I've always used royal icing. Now royal icing is brilliant because it dries really hard, which means that all the joins are going to be nice and sturdy, and also it doubles up as the decoration. So to start with, to make my royal icing, I have 400 grams of sifted icing sugar in my bowl. To that I'm going to add 15 grams of powdered egg white. I'm going to get that going on the mixer just to mix those two things together. And I'm going to add some water, and that's going to make it become icing. I'm going to start by putting 3 tablespoons in, and then I'm going to add the last tablespoon gradually so I can get the right consistency. So I'm looking for a thick, pipeable consistency, something that's not going to be really, really hard to squeeze out of a piping bag, but equally something that's not just going to run out of it straight away. So once you've reached it, just turn the mixer up and mix it for about 10 minutes. So this is the kind of consistency you're looking for, quite sort of thick. If it's too thick, just add a little bit more water and mix again. If it's too thin, of course, just add a little bit more icing sugar. But that's what you should end up with. And I've already prepared some piping bags. I've got white, green and red with a number 2 nozzle. If you don't have a nozzle, don't worry, you can just snip the end of your piping bag off and it'll work just as well. And I'm going to get on with decorating because I want to decorate all my elements of my house before I assemble it. Otherwise it can be a bit tricky to get it all neat and tidy. And I'm going to start with the front of my gingerbread house, and of course you can decorate it however you'd like your house to look. I always start with the front door and then work my way around the windows. So that's all the different parts of my house decorated. So we've got right and left sides, the 2 pieces which will make up the roof, and the front door and the back door. So just keep going until you've decorated all the different parts of your houses, and they'll need to dry for at least a couple of hours before you start assembling your house, otherwise you're likely to squish a line. So everything's dry now, so it's time to start assembling. So I've got another bag of white royal icing here, which I'm going to use to glue everything together. So I'm going to start by grabbing the front and the back pieces and the 2 sides. And I'm going to turn the front and back upside down and just pipe a really nice generous line along the side of each of those. And then making sure that you've got them the right way up, so with the doors at the bottom. Take your side pieces and just stick them on like that. And don't worry if it all comes smishing out the sides, because we're going to do a decorative edge. So do the same with the other side. And then grab the back door and pop it on. And give it a nice firm squeeze, but obviously remember that you're dealing with biscuit, so not too firm. You don't want to snap everything, but they do want to be nice and snug. So that's your front and sides done, and then for the roof pieces, you're going to need to do a generous line on all the edges of your existing structure. And stick your little roof tiles on. And it might sort of, because it's still quite wet, this royal icing, it might move about a little bit, but just be gentle and just move it all into the right place as you go. Because once it's all assembled, you can just leave it to dry and it'll be perfect. And there's your little house, almost done. But just to give it a bit of extra structure and a bit more decoration, I'm just going to go around all the edges and the top with a nice decorative pattern. So doing this is really, really good because not only does it cover up any kind of wonky bits or holes that you might have, it also makes your house look really pretty. So there it is, my finished mini gingerbread house. Now this guy is going to need to stay put for a couple of hours before you can start giving them out to all your friends, but they make really nice gifts and they make brilliant decorations, and the best bit is you can eat them, so everyone's a winner. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and don't forget I'll be back next week with another festive recipe for you guys. In the meantime, have fun getting ready for Christmas, and I'll see you soon. Bye.